Hi everyone, my name is Ben Hewlin and I want to show you some simple chords in first position on the octave mandolin or bouzouki. So let's just dive right in. First you need to make sure you're in tune. Here's my G. I have octave pairs on the bottom two strings. So I have two Gs, two Ds, A, so again, you can pause this video and get yourself in tune if you like. But obviously, you need to be in tune for the chords to sound right. And obviously, if you don't have octave pairs on the bottom, the strings, your chords may sound slightly different from mine, but they are the same. So I'm just going to start with an A chord, open A chord. You can use your first and second fingers, or your second and third fingers, and place them on the second fret of the G strings, and your finger adjacent to that can go on the second fret of the D strings. So it's that's a nice open ringy A chord. And again, you can use your second and third finger, or you can just use your first and second finger. Some people bar it with just flattening one finger. And there are lots of reasons for playing in different ways. B flat is a little harder to play, but you can simply move it up a half step, and you need to cover the first fret on the E strings and on the A strings. And then you can move that B flat, just like that. If you imagine in your A that you have an invisible finger here at the nut, right? You're just moving it up a half step. The B, kind of boring to move it that way, so I'm going to show you another position in just a second, but this is assuming you're a very beginner. C gives us a lot of different possibilities. So typically you play a C open chord with your index finger on the second fret of the D strings and your middle finger on the third fret of the A strings. And the other two strings can ring open. A lot of variations there. You can add the G on top by dropping your third finger on the third fret of the E string. Or it's common to drop your pinky finger to the fifth fret, if you can reach, on the G strings. And that's a lot more like the sort of the chop chord that you might play in bluegrass on the mandolin. And if you can flatten your finger, you can play all four strings and get a nice closed chord. So let's see, C sharp. Again, if you look at the C chord, and imagine instead of making it with your first and second fingers, you're making it with your third and fourth fingers, and your nut is like this invisible finger here. Then if you move that up, you can get that C sharp right there. A D chord is typically played here, or here. So I like to put my first finger on the second fret of the G strings, and my second finger on the second fret of the E strings. And let the two in the middle ring open. That's so that I can also drop these fingers down and get a full four-finger chord on the D sometime, depending on your skill level and comfort. E flat, again, you've got your D. I'm going to use my second and third fingers. And imagine your invisible finger at the nut. Move it up a half step. There's your E flat major. So I have my third finger on the third fret of the G string, my pinky finger on the third fret of the E string, and I'm dropping my index finger to bar the first fret on the second or on the A and D strings. F, there are two Fs I like to play. One is like this. Wait a minute. What did I skip? E flat? I'm on E now. E major you can play with your index finger on the first fret of the G string, your middle finger on the second fret of the D strings, your ring finger on the 2nd fret of the A strings, and you can let the E, open E, ring. So you can also use these 3 fingers. And if you imagine your invisible finger on the nut, slide it up 1, and you've got an F major. You can also, instead of barring, just play in this position. So I have my 1st finger on the E, my 3rd finger on the A, my 4th finger on the A at the 3rd fret, my 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the D strings, and my 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the G strings. You can also play an F like this. F sharp I almost always play up here, but there is one here too. So I've got my 1st finger on the 1st fret of the A string, my 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the E string, my 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the G strings, and my pinky on the 4th fret of the D strings. There's an F sharp major. Slide that up 1 and you've got a G major. But a G major also has a G and a D in the chord, so you can just lift those 2. You have a nice 2-finger G chord. You can also take your F shape and slide that up 2. Right? And the last major chord in the 1st position is a G sharp. And I usually play that here. All these chords are movable if you sort of envision the 0 fret as an imaginary finger at the nut. And you know, the most common ones are going to be your G, C, D, A, E. And then, you know, depending on what style of music you might play a lot of B flats for classical music, a lot of B majors for B natural majors for I don't know, some styles of music, blues. But hopefully that gives you a nice primer in major chords in 1st position for the octave mandolin. Talk to you soon.